Hello and welcome to Playing Politics. I'm Helen McCabe. The final 2 weeks of Parliament is underway in Canberra with emissions trading scheme legislation dominating the debate. But this morning, Prime Minister Kevin Rudd and Opposition Leader Malcolm Turnbull both gave heartfelt speeches as part of the apology to the forgotten Australians. To discuss both issues, I'll be joined later by former MP Cheryl Curnow and journalist Glenn Milne. But first, let's go to Canberra, where I'm joined by the Shadow Assistant Treasurer, Tony Smith. Tony, thanks for joining me this afternoon.
Thanks, Helen. Good to be with you.
Can I first ask you about the apology? The Coalition clearly felt that this was the right thing to do this morning.
Yeah, look, and the room was full of emotion, as you can understand, and I know you were carrying it live, and we've got the parliamentary motion coming up. But just some of the figures, 500,000 people, and you think of that, Helen, as 5 MCG crowds. I think the Prime Minister talked about it in terms of the population of Adelaide. And it is a very important day for those people. It's a part of our history we do need to deal with. And we had a great flavour of this actually in the last sitting, where the member for Swan, Steve Irons, who himself ended up being a foster kid, spoke of his experience, which was a positive one, but spoke on behalf, of course, of so many people who had terrible experiences and for which we owe them an apology, and hopefully from this day some of them can move forward.
Tony, but how is it different from the apology to Indigenous Australians, which the Coalition opposed for so long?
Well, look, it was a difficult period of time. We had reports, as you had in this case. Today there's lots of talk of the Senate reports, and I noticed former Senator Andrew Murray there featuring, who I know pretty well. But at the end of the day, it was the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do now, and I think for many people in Australia it's a chapter of history that's not well known. I supported the apology to Stolen Generations. I've said before that it would have been better if that had been dealt with earlier. But I think it's important to focus on the positive aspect today. There was a lot of emotion in the room, as you'd expect. It'll be a day of unity, and I think going forward, a day where we'll look back and there'll be a greater level of education in the community about what really, for many people, has been something of a silent issue.
We've also heard from Senator Steve Fielding this morning at the doors in Parliament House. He's revealed that he was a victim of sexual abuse. Is that a surprise to people in Canberra that he's made that revelation this morning?
I hadn't heard that until you just said that, Helen, and I'll have a look at that later on. As I said, I mean, you've broken the news to me, and for Steve to make that revelation, it's obviously something he's thought about very carefully, and he's wanted to make that revelation today. And I'll have a look at obviously what he's had to say a bit later on, but that is news to me.
Sure, I'm sorry to dump that on you. Can I move to the emissions trading scheme? Are you confident that there will be a deal on this legislation cut over the next fortnight?
Well, look, I don't think it's useful, as Malcolm Turnbull said yesterday, for people to sort of punt and openly speculate. We are in good faith negotiations, and I know you've heard that term a lot, but we are clearly getting to the pointy end of those. We're past the end of the beginning and getting towards the end. There was some news from the government on the weekend with respect to agriculture, and I don't think it's useful to sort of grade each of the changes we've put forward. We'll wait to see the entire package and see how all the pieces of the jigsaw come together, and by virtue of the fact that the government decided to announce a concession on agriculture, clearly they're advanced in their thinking, and we'll expect something in the not too distant future, within days, you would have thought. And I know that's frustrating for you, Helen, and for everyone else, but once we've got that package, then we'll see what's on offer, and of course the shadow cabinet, shadow ministry and the party room will then make a judgment on it.
What did you think of Senator Minchin's comments on Four Corners, in which he said many Australians don't accept that human activity is the cause of global warming?
Well, of course there are Australians who think that. I mean, but the point I'd make is, from my perspective, and I'll speak for myself, obviously there's been climate change and global warming over the centuries. The issue is man now contributing to that? And I take my cue from the science, and that is to give the planet the benefit of the doubt. And that's why we've always said that an emissions trading scheme is useful, provided it is a global scheme, and only a global scheme, of course, will be effective. So, I mean, I don't think it's useful to sort of go back over Four Corners. We're now back in the final fortnight of the year. Those negotiations are ongoing. We'll see what bears fruit from those, but I think everything else is a sideshow and a bit of a waste of energy, and let's just wait and see what the government put forward. They've already conceded that they were wrong on agriculture. Let's see what they say on all of the other elements, and let's look at them all together as a package, not banquet style.
So what happens if some members of the coalition represent those in the community that don't accept that emissions trading scheme is necessary, or that there is global warming, and decides to disagree with your leader Malcolm Turnbull? How does that work for the coalition?
Well, as I said, Helen, I'm not trying to be difficult, but we're at that point where the negotiations are ongoing, and we'll deal with what the government brings back, and then we'll see what the outcome is in the party room at that point. But I don't think it's useful to speculate on that until we've got all of that detail back and a decision's made, and that's always been our approach.
Peter Van Onselen over the weekend wrote in the Sunday Telegraph that it's political killing season ahead. What he means by that is that over the Christmas period, if a political leader isn't performing, then that's usually a time when they face the chop. Implicit in that, as we go into an election year, is that Malcolm Turnbull will be under pressure over this period. Peter Van Onselen's right about that, theoretically at least, isn't he?
Look, Helen, it is political accountability season for Kevin Rudd. Next week it's the 2-year anniversary from his election, and I can tell you out there in the community, as that 2-year period clocks up, increasingly the public are saying, we know he can talk, but we haven't seen much action. You've seen on asylum seekers a completely failed border protection policy. People in the community saying whatever happened to his promise to take over public hospitals. Chaos in the Julia Gillard Memorial School halls. I mean, she is the master of disaster when it comes to policy implementation. So this is the period of accountability for Kevin Rudd, and that's what all of the colleagues here are focused on, I can assure you.
Well, on asylum seekers, and just quickly, the reintroduction of the coalition policy for temporary protection visas, do you support that?
Absolutely, and the vast majority of the party room do. Of course, not everyone in the party room does, but that's hardly news to you, and it's a very important part of the fabric that Mr Rudd's unpicked, and we've seen the consequences of that pretty starkly.
Tony Smith, thank you very much for joining Playing Politics.
Thanks, Helen.
And there's more ahead this lunchtime as we play politics with Cheryl Curnow and Glenn Milne. Stay with us.